glasses in our hands.
Yeah, right?
And we walk back up.
Good.
I forgot to put my cocktail glass down. Oh, okay, live.
Great. Okay. You got your agenda? Okay.
John, you got the revised agenda that I dropped off? Okay, just wanna make sure you got it.
All right, welcome, everyone. We're already called to order, and we just completed an executive session, so we'll move on to public hearing. And this is a public hearing for the liquor license at Oakland Park Bowling Lanes. Do we have anybody who wants to make any public comment? Welcome, hi. Have a seat in front of the microphone.
Thank you.
Want to introduce yourself?
My name's Jason Kaler. I'm the owner of Oakland Park Bowling.
Great, great. And you've got the application here, I see. And anybody have any questions for Jason? It's a great, my family went there last Christmas Eve and had a great time. So it's a wonderful resource to have in our town.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think the police chief has reviewed everything and approved it, so we have the police chief in favor of granting this liquor license. We'll take actual action on it later in our action items under the agenda, so this is just public comment in the hearing. So is there anything you want to add or talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay. Anybody else who has any public comment on the Oakland Park liquor license? Okay,
That's a good
thank you very
sign.
much.
That's a good sign.
Okay, I'll close that public hearing. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is amendments to the agenda. We do want to add one action item coming out of our executive session. So we'll add an action item to take action on a real estate contract under our action item portion of the agenda. Is there a motion for doing that?
I make a motion to add a real estate transaction as an action item on the agenda.
Okay, second?
Second.
Michael? Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Great. Okay, do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Jan?
I am Jan Rosenbaum. I live in Rockport. I sent a letter to Denise asking her to send it to you guys. I'm going to read that letter before I take any questions, just to get it onto the record. For Select Board consideration, please note that although I am a member of the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force and refers to that work being done by the task force, this suggestion comes from me as an individual resident of Rockport. In going through the comprehensive plan as part of our task force assignment, we are deciding on the appropriate committees or town departments to be responsible for the various tasks through their implementation. Often it has seemed to me that another but non-existent committee could be useful for many of these tasks. Let's call it the Outreach Committee or the Communications Committee, whose responsibilities would be to effect communication between the town and appropriate stakeholders and neighbors as needed. For example, to the business community, to the nonprofit community, to the regional community, to other towns, to groups of citizens, to charitable organizations within Rockport, Knox County, and the state. Useful skills on the committee would include experience in marketing, design, copywriting, copy editing, convincing rhetoric, and the ability to get along with people in different communities and go to lots of meetings. When the 155 goals the comprehensive plan sets out, I think that the Outreach Committee might be a logical venture for these goals. Then I provide you with a list. There are 57 goals on the list from the total of 155 that involve the kind of communication and the kind of information that we need in order to satisfy those goals. So I decided to come and suggest that we add a new permanent committee to the town. Camden has a person in charge of communications. Rockland is considering somebody in charge of communications. The 3 counties around here have people in charge of communications. Belfast has an assistant in the town manager's office to take care of communications. We do not. And I think that it would be, since we're trying to work very closely with a lot of other communities and with the state to get the comprehensive plan successfully completed, I think it would be of value for the select board to consider adding another committee. I know it's difficult, that it adds more responsibilities and more looking for volunteers to do it, but I think it's an essential thing that we should think about. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jan.
Jan.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, moving on, we have the town manager's report. John?
Well, thank you. Quickly, we've got obviously a lot of things on the agenda tonight. I want to obviously take note of a lot of hard work that went into our election last Tuesday. Staff, residents, voters. It was a wild, woolly day in the election world, but once again, though we did have a little bit of a disturbance, the results and everything went on according to plan. So we had over 1,650 votes cast in the state ballot, and so that's just a great testament to our residents, getting involved, having their voice heard. All the results are in my report, but they're also on the website, so people can pour through them if they want. Election time is my favorite time of year, and there's nothing better than seeing people getting out and exercising their rights. So very excited and glad to see that. Hey, John.
John, how does that compare to what we normally get, just to give us some perspective?
Yeah, so this is a bit larger than what we normally see for a non-gubernatorial, non-presidential November election. It's a little bit higher than usual. I think question 1 and question 2 drew a lot of people out to the polls, if I put my political science degree back to use. But it is a little bit higher. There's certainly, as we're entering a gubernatorial cycle here, where we have likely primaries to come in June on both the Republican and Democratic sides for the gubernatorial race. The U.S. Senate race seems there'll be some primary action as well. So I think we'll see a very active June forthcoming as well, and of course November in a gubernatorial cycle. That should be something where we see well over 2,000 voters showing up to participate. So it's we have seen more people utilize the absentee ballot process, coming in either voting in person, absentee, or requesting ballots. And so that's been I think more people have taken advantage of that, but Megan worked those days, and she can attest to how busy they are and how steady they've been, even with some strong absentee balloting. So I think that there's never enough room, there's never enough space, there's never enough to do everything, but really I want to also give credit to the library, the folks, Ben and the staff of the library. They do a really good job of being good hosts. And that's always nice to see, So Liz and the clerks do such a great job and be so organized. We're really lucky. They really work well together, and our staff that pitch in, they also really do an outstanding job. So it should be a source of pride for all of us in Rockport.
I was struck, the June election, we had a turnout of about 595, so this is quite a bit higher. I think people are more attuned to voting in November than they are in June.
Yeah.
We're hoping to increase turnout in June as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to some other, events that are moving on in town. Obviously, we are hiring for police officers. There's a couple in the back of the room we could maybe hire. I don't know if the sheriff or the chief deputy are interested in coming to Rockport, but we'd love to have, you can talk to the guy to your left, and I'm sure he can get you an application. But we are looking, we're very excited, you know, we have a great department, and I'd love to have some people join the crew. I'm gonna pass over the regional collaboration, because we're gonna talk about that in a bit, and I don't wanna steal anyone's thunder. Certainly not a sheriff running for office, so I don't wanna get in the way of that, Pat, but appreciate that. We mentioned the winter parking ban will begin on November 15th, so we've got 5 more days. Extends through April 15th, so there's no on-street parking from midnight to 6 a.m. So if you're parking on the street now, you got 4 days to move it, 5 days. And last thing I want to mention, we're sort of at the end of the road construction season, and I want to give a shout out to Greg Bowman. He's one of our crew leaders for our public works department, and he fabricated a chute effectively to go in the back of our larger trucks so we can shoulder the road. So usually we hire this process out to a pretty sizable firm to go out. We had budgeted almost $40,000 for this effort, and Greg was able to put something together, and a little ingenuity and a little grease and elbow grease, and maybe there's some gum and twine in there involved, but was able to sort of fabricate something so we can get out there and show these roads, many of them ourselves. And that will, certainly we have material that we'll have to pay for,
Sure,
but the
that's
time and the effort, very slick. I put a photo in my report of some of what's been done there, so. I'll save the fire and EMS side to Jason to talk about in a grander sense, but it's been a pretty busy month here for the town of Rockport, so appreciate everyone's hard work, and certainly if anybody has questions, feel
No,
free
but
to
I just
email.
wanted to make one comment for Liz and the fact that we can do dog licenses online now. So I
Yes.
think besides car registration and dog licensing, I think Liz has done an amazing job of bringing us into this century and making it easier for our residents and non-residents to do business with us. And I think that she deserves some kudos for that. So
Fully agree, yep, absolutely.
great job.
Yeah, and that's so important too. The more we can do things online and save our town clerk's time and her staff time for in-person visits. I know it's sometimes just nice to go into your town office, and we certainly aren't trying to discourage that, but it's helpful from a town budget perspective if we're like taking advantage of those online opportunities. All right, any questions for John?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Next is our consent agenda, and we have two different committee resignations from Doug Cole, Parks and Beautification and the Village Partnership Initiative. And then we have the October 14, 2025 meeting minutes. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So I wasn't here for October 14th, so I don't think I can motion
Let's-
or
yeah.
unless you want to separate them out.
Why don't we separate those out?
Okay.
Let's go ahead with the committee resignations.
Okay, so I move to accept the committee resignation, Doug Cole, Parks and Beautifications. And was there another one too? I'm sorry.
Village Partnership Initiative.
And Village Partnership Initiative.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
If I could, just want to note, Doug has decided to step away from all of his board commitments in Rockport, boards and committees. There are a couple elected positions, both on the budget committee and the library committee. The board doesn't take action on those because they're elected positions, that those committees don't operate under the authority of the board, but
Yeah.
I wanted to have it mentioned and that those vacancies will exist, and want to make sure it's mentioned so everyone understands Doug's stepping away from some town involvements, so.
And I think a lot of us know Doug, and he's done an amazing job in the town, helping out with these various committees and stepping up when we've needed it. So we've really appreciated that and his service. So, any discussion? All those in favor? All right. 4-0. Okay, and then we have approval of the meeting minutes from October 14, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting,
Okay.
October 14th.
October 14th. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, great. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's a 3-0 vote. Great. Okay. That's the consent agenda. Next is, we're moving into our action item portion of the agenda, and that is to act on the liquor license that we all just heard about for the Oakland Park bowling lanes. Do we have a motion to approve the liquor license?
I move to approve the new liquor license for Oakland Park Center LLC as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great.
Great.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck,
Have fun,
thank you.
Jason.
Everybody go bowl. Take advantage of our
right,
local
that's right.
businesses.
Do you want to take action on the real estate?
Yeah, should we go ahead
Yeah,
and do
let's
the
do
real
that.
estate one now?
Okay, so I don't think we have a motion technically for that, so I'm
No.
gonna make it
No,
up.
there isn't.
Okay, so I move that we accept offer one for the real estate at 54 Beach Hill Road in Rockport.
Okay.
Second?
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, yeah, do we want to mention some of the details?
Yeah, I think we can.
Oh,
Yeah.
can we?
You can talk about it, okay, we weren't sure.
We wanted to clarify that the town does not profit from the sale in these instances, and all we do is recover our back taxes.
So this is a foreclosed piece of property that is now owned by the town because we foreclosed for back taxes.
Yeah,
And then under state law,
yeah.
we're only able to receive the back tax portion, and any overage in what this property is sold for will go back to the original owner, to the owner of the property.
And as I learned, the state had changed their regulations on how the process happens. And now we have to have a licensed real estate agent trying to sell at market rate. And so that's where we're at. So we're not just giving it to the cheapest person, So it is,
It's a good,
Yeah.
it's a good
Yeah. Yeah.
good faith offer by someone who is excited to get in there and clean up the property, which I'm
Mhm.
sure the neighbors will appreciate.
Yes.
All right, let's have a vote. All those in favor? Okay, 4-0. And next on that is we had talked also about, because we have a series of properties that we want to move forward, and the sooner we can get these properties sold and back on the tax rolls, the better for all of us. So we talked about having the town manager, we sort of know what the parameters are from the state law we just referenced, and working with a real estate agent, we wanted to, we've talked, I think we should consider giving John Duke the authority to act on these real estate proposals so that they're not delayed by the time it takes us to get into our next meeting. So rather than having to wait every month before these contracts can be acted on, we'd like to be able to move those properties faster, and we have 3 properties currently on the market. So, do we have a motion to appoint?
Yes, so I make a motion that we grant authority to sign, I'm not sure what we're saying,
Sign the contract.
to sign the contracts for the sale of town-owned properties, as long as that offer covers the expenses which would be due back to the town.
Yep.
We can
Okay.
just amend it slightly, Michelle.
Yep,
I think we need to clarify, town owns a lot of properties. We're talking about the ones that are,
for yes.
That have been
But-
foreclosed on for back
Foreclosed, yes,
taxes.
for back taxes, yes,
okay.
as amended.
Well, second the motion.
Okay.
if this
All
property
right.
goes on the
Any-
market.
Yeah. Don't be
Any
selling
further
open house.
discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 4-0.
Okay,
Great.
so get those other properties sold, John.
Absolutely, okay, yep. Will do.
Okay,
All right, moving on. Just as soon as I find the agenda. Okay. Next is act on committee applications. And this, we have 3 applicants for the Harbor Strategic Plan Implementation Task Force. And that's essentially a 3-member task force. So that's, we've had some folks who I think have all been involved in the original work done in analyzing what the harbor needs, what the long-range plan for the harbor is. And we've got Bob Colmar, Bill Bowe, and Nancy Albertson. And I see Bill Bowe and Bob Colmar here, who have both applied to be on that committee. And I gather Nancy couldn't make it tonight. And Nancy is already she's on the existing harbor committee. She served on the task force that worked with the consultants in coming up with this long-term plan for the harbor that this new task force is being tasked with implementing. We've got a $2 million grant. Decisions have to be made about how that gets best used in the town's interests and in what's required under the grant, as well as other steps that came out of this study process. So Bob, do you want to come up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, come on up, Bill.
Yeah, you guys both come up.
Yeah.
That's a good, efficient approach.
That's right.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Bob Colmar, resident, happy to help try to make this happen without any impact to our community. Bill and I have worked together before on other projects, seem to work pretty well,
Without any adverse impact.
without any adverse impacts, that's correct.
That's right.
That's it.
And, I just have to say, we're so fortunate to have people with your background willing to come forward and volunteer for the town. The engineering background, the expertise has really allowed the town to do some essential work, but with town volunteers, and that's pretty great.
Well, his greatest asset is his impatience.
Yeah, he just wants to get it done.
Let's get it done.
Get it
Yep.
done.
Get her done. Any questions for, and I'll let Bill talk in a sec, but
No,
Um,
thank you.
thanks.
No, not for the applicants, but I do have a question about the task force.
Okay, and then Bill, do you want to?
Oh, I'm Bill Bowe, and everything he said about it, we just need to get this done, and
Yeah.
let's get started, so.
Great. Appreciate your,
And to clarify, these are recommendations for implementing things, but then each item then would come for
depending on what the
I mean,
issues are,
yeah.
we still have to,
the-
this task force.
the final decisions on the project being funded or whatever come before the board, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't think,
And/or the
I mean,
town
it
for
depends
vote.
on the
Yeah.
particular issue,
Yeah.
but we're not changing anything about how things are required to get done in the town. This is really just taking the I mean, it's
Yeah.
a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
comparable to the comprehensive plan task force, where a group, first of all, developed the comprehensive plan, but then you get the plan, and you now have to figure out
Implement it.
from the pieces of it, what needs to be done, who needs to be tasked with getting it done. Some things will be on a longer time frame than others. We do have this grant, so I think an important aspect of what they're doing is to determine how to best use that grant in the town's interests and complying with the grant requirements.
And I know they'll do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to ask questions while they're still?
Well, I'm just wondering, are we saying that we're only gonna have 3 members on this task force, or do we have a goal in mind of other applicants?
When we created the task force, we thought of a small, nimble group, and so we recommended 3.
Well, my only concern is having somebody from the commercial side. I'd like to see a little addition of somebody who's actually working the waterfront and,
Well, I'm sure they'll be consulting with,
yeah.
I don't think it's intentionally to avoid that. I think they didn't apply, but it would definitely be something,
There was some discussion about one of the members participating, but there was too close of a potential conflict of interest over their direct participation. So
Oh, okay.
it wasn't without some discussion about, whether or not that made sense, because I agree with you, it does.
yeah.
I
But,
just know they have strong feelings about some things down there.
and the conflict issues sort of punched in,
Over it,
and they made a decision to help
Okay.
without helping, if you know.
Then my
Yeah, so we'll definitely have their input.
Yeah, my next question is there going to be a liaison from the select board to the task force, or are we leaving it to its own devices?
No, I guess I had volunteered to be the
Okay.
liaison, if that's, it's a group I've worked with before, and
Okay,
of course,
That's
these will be open public meetings, so anybody who wants to come and see what's happening and learn more about it is absolutely welcome.
okay.
All right.
All right,
So
we have a
I will move
motion?
to approve the 3 committee applications for the Harbor Strategic Plan Implementation Task Force as presented.
Second.
Second with John. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0, okay.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you
so
very much. And
Thanks,
thanks to
James.
Nancy, too.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next is act on
Bylaws.
planning board bylaws. Let's see. Ryan, you're gonna come up and give us some background on this?
The only real change being added on the bylaws is having the planning board designated in the bylaws as the person that's going to sign the findings of facts. So normally at the end of the meeting, when they approve the findings of facts, they then have to go through and make another motion to appoint the chair to sign the findings of facts on behalf of the planning board. And if you forget, then you have to kind of go back.
Go
So
back.
our attorney recommended to add language into the bylaws.
Okay, so that's the only change, is changing
That's the
voting.
only change to the bylaws and the structure. There was some cleanup stuff that the planning board went through, but nothing substantive.
Okay,
So the only change is section 7, article C, right? Or paragraph
Yes.
C, okay.
Yeah.
okay. Any questions for Ryan? Okay,
No?
John, I know you're on the planning, or you're
Yeah.
the liaison to the,
Yeah, no, we had a good discussion of
Yep.
it.
okay,
Okay.
great. Do we have a motion?
I move that we amend the bylaws for the planning board with the language that's in that's
I move to approve the
Move to
planning board
approve.
bylaws as presented.
approve the bylaws as presented. That's even better.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
I'll second
Well
that.
said. Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that's 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Brian.
Next is act on Rockport Opera House fee schedule. Do we have anybody here to talk about that, or
Well, it's, it,
do you want to, I mean, it's,
yeah, I mean, this is really just the two areas of the wedding charges. The day after access is reduced. It didn't require as much time as we had sort of laid out in past, so reduced that amount, and then the technical fees, they were increased from $100 an hour to 125.
so I'm assuming it's
that's-
helpful for the next day rentals if you
Get
know
it
that
turned
they're out
around.
soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, you know, that's, the technical fees, that was a bit of a change prior to, and, you know, really just trying to cover our costs. That's really all this is about, so.
That's important.
Yeah, and, you know, maybe make enough, a little bit extra to cover
Yep.
some things.
Yep. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the Rockport Opera House fee schedule as presented effective January 2026.
Okay,
Second.
second, Michael. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Great. Okay, next action item is act on committee work plans, and we have a work plan from the library committee.
And this is, the library committee traditionally uses roughly the same work plan annually, which is really just in keeping with their mission. There's nothing new or extraordinary here. But we will soon see other work plans from other committees who are completing their work, so. But this is a fairly straightforward. They always review their mission, and so effectively, it's a good process for them as well, for the library committee to sort of reexamine themselves and ensure that they're keeping to what their mission is and their responsibilities to the town.
And the library committee, it's an elected positions, the folks who are on the library committee, and it's a pretty significant committee in the sense that the endowment that they help fund the library with is currently valued at over $1 million. So it's serious business in terms of making sure that money is properly invested and protected for the future interests of the library. But it allows the town to have a pretty amazing library, but not, a lot of that money is not paid for by the taxpayers. It comes out of the endowment, so that's, makes a big difference for our town. Do we have a motion to approve the library committee work plan?
I move to approve the library committee work plan as presented.
Is there a second?
Second, go ahead, Mike.
Look at it to John.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. 4-0. Great. Okay, next is And this is our last action item, act on harbor fee schedule.
Unfortunately, our harbor master has laryngitis, so
Oh.
I'll be doing my best Abby Leonard impression tonight. There's two changes to the fee schedule. One is regarding float storage, and using the actual, area of those floats to represent the fee charged. And the second is an increase to the, commercial marine service permit from $850 to $1,200 per season. So, it's, I think largely, in large part, the sense is to try to make that, the 850 was, I think, a first stab at trying to understand what the real costs are that the town is bearing to support, commercial entities who are launching boats and so forth. And the sense was that number, should go up to represent, the real costs, so. Abby is available via text, but obviously, we can't have her Zoom in because she can't
You
talk.
can't talk.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
And the Harbor Committee did approve this
yes,
6-0. Okay.
unanimously, yep.
Okay.
Any questions for John?
Well, I'm just curious, John, a commercial use is anybody who's a fisherman as well as,
No.
yacht services and.
No, yeah, think of dock services, think of,
Johansson?
yeah,
Lawrence
yeah,
Boats?
right, Johansson, Yachting Solutions, some of these entities, the fishermen are on a separate timetable, yeah.
Right, great.
Yeah, and I guess I want to just note that I think some of the small businesses that provide these services and the float storage, it is going to mean they need to pass those costs on to their customers. I mean, I think that's sort of the fundamental, I know there's been concern by some of the business owners who work down there when these fees go up,
Yeah.
that it should be a total pass-through to the people who are benefiting, the owners of those floats, rather than trying to, put the hardworking folks in our harbor at some financial detriment or make it harder for them to run their businesses. So I know a lot of thought went into this issue.
If I could just briefly add, I think the other piece of this too is it's a recognition of the cost that it takes to support those businesses and everything else that goes with it. But also it lessens the burden from the taxpayers of, every bit that is user fee supported lessens the amount that's raised elsewhere. And that's always a challenge. The harbor is, I don't know if we've ever gotten it right. I don't know if there is a right answer to the harbor, but it's always this balance of how much of it is something that the whole town covers versus how much the user fees balance. It's something every board in Rockport has always had had difficulty with. So.
Yeah. Well, harbor's a wonderful amenity for our town,
It is.
but we do need to make sure it's paying its way.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the harbor fee schedule as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 4-0. All right. Now we move on to the discussion items under our agenda, and the first one is entitled Regional Policing Efforts. So I'll let John introduce this.
Well, I'll start while they're all these three gentlemen walking to the front.
You have to sit on the floor.
They are armed, so I'm gonna be very nice.
Get your
to
voice
them.
in while you can.
I would say, I'll just start it and I'll give it to Chief Gagnon to somewhat run with, but there was a great deal of conversation through last year's budget process regarding the role of, I'd say, in a broader sense, the future of Rockport's police department, but also in a broader sense, regionalization, and regionalization via policing. Obviously, we have a small department in Rockport. We're surrounded by other municipal departments in Camden and in Rockland. We share a police chief with one of those communities. And I think in light of the costs and the growing costs, there was a great deal of conversation with the budget committee of, is there a better way to do this? Is there a cheaper way to do this? Is there a more efficient way to do this? And so like every other idea or good idea or concept that gets thrown out in the budget process, it sometimes takes a little time to germinate. And Chief and I have been talking about issues relating to regionalization for well before that meeting and well after that meeting. But I think there's also moments where opportunities strike, sort of present themselves. And, I think Chief took this opportunity and working with his colleagues here, found some good solutions that work well for Rockport. They're efficient for Rockport's residents, but more importantly, they also provide a good quality service, which is also that balance, cost versus service. How do you balance those things? So I'll let Chief take it from here, and then he can introduce the fine young gentleman to his right.
Well, good evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you and let you know what's going on in the world of policing. My esteemed colleagues here are both Camden Police Department alumni that Kurt served 26 years with Camden and Patrick was 12? 13 years. So, as I said the other night, they've gone on and done really well in the field of law enforcement. Proud of both of them for what they've done. And sometimes I feel like the college dad who's, the kids have graduated from college, now you're going to try to get something out of them. So we, last year during the budget proceedings, we kind of forecasted what we thought might happen, but we tried to stay the course with the amount of people that we had. You couldn't have written the issues that we went through last year, including losing Travis Ford. Terrible, terrible thing. And, and we've had some resignations and we've had people move on. So staffing has remained a constant. And the one way to spoil morale in your department is overworking the staff that you've got. We had officers that were working 100 hours a week last year to cover vacancies, cover this, cover that. And it was happening again this year. The pool of applicants out there is not that great. Not a lot of people trying to get into it. We're all competing for the same apples in the barrel, and it's becoming problematic. So noticing that we were low on staff, and we tried some creative things, and bureaucracy gets in the way of how you have to pay people and premium rates and whatnot. So that idea that we had, I was planning on using Camden and Rockport officers to share overnight responsibilities. But the formula we came up with, we were told, Megan was told by the state that we couldn't actually pay the fee that everybody had agreed, that we had to actually pay a higher rate. So it wasn't cost effective for us. So I was sitting at my desk one day and I said, well, I think I'm going to reach out to Patrick. And I reached out to Patrick and I said, look, I have an idea that if I could get some coverage time during the historically low call volume times of the day. Let me just say, we're not going to talk about security planning or give the details of that, but we'll touch on those. It would allow me to bring staff in at different times of day where we have more of our productive or higher call volume. And, Patrick immediately said, yeah, let me look things over, but I think I can supply that coverage. Now, we talked about response coverage, where the sheriff's office has 24-hour coverage out there. They have deputies out there on the road serving the county at the historic low call volume times. And we also talked about designated deputy to be in the towns. Well, based on our analysis of the call volumes, the low call volume times usually account for less than 1% of the total call volume per year. So understandably, it's that time. So we thought we would start with, taking Patrick up on his offer to give us that break that we needed daily for a few hours. And he offered to do that for no additional fees to the towns of Camden and Rockport as part of the tax that you pay every year to the county, which was a great help. Now, Patrick could talk to you further on towns that have established police departments, the sheriff's office can contract if you want a designated service. So, you know, we could always get a price of what they would want or something like that. But we thought we'd just try this, and it's in its infancy right now. So what we do is, I look at the complaints every day to see if there was a response to Camden or Rockport. Camden had 4 calls for service during the times that they were covering last year. Rockport had, I think it was 13 when I looked at it, but most of those were alarms. And we've all gone to a different formula and process of handling alarms that's much more cost-effective than it used to be. And some of the things that occur during that time Knox is covering are not things that need an immediate response. It's something that can hold over till the next shift comes in. We've looked at the response times. We have some built-in redundancy as well. And I mean, when I say that, what we have is we have a county-wide law enforcement mutual aid agreement, because none of our agencies want an officer going to a call by themselves. We work hand in hand with that. I've had officers back the sheriff's office up in Washington. They've come to our critical incidents. They may be passing through town and stop a drunk driver. We like all that stuff. We did have a test case. We did have a domestic in Rockport while Knox was covering. The response time was within what we would call allowable. And we also had an automatic response from a Rockland unit, because they know that the critical nature of those complaints, that people need to get resources there. I didn't hear about it till the next morning, so they didn't have to call in and say, hey, they took care of it. It was handled the way it should have been. And I don't feel that the average citizen is going to see any difference in response times or calls during that time that they're covering. And it's helping us out greatly.
Great.
You know, today, for instance, I came in at 7 this morning, and I'll be here till 3 a.m. because we had somebody that ended up going out. They didn't have enough officers to cover, so that's what we're dealing with. We're trying to get away from that, because nobody wants to do that. But every officer in our department has gone way above and beyond. We bring resources from Camden to help Rockport, Rockport to help Camden. So we have been doing this for a long time. Chief Carroll and I work very closely with different things. I've gone down to help cover him when he's at a meeting. They have responded to critical incidents here in town. We've gone down and helped them, just like the sheriff's office. We all respond to that. We don't wait for that, somebody to say, hey, we need something. We start putting resources together if there's a critical incident. And I gotta say, for all of our partner agencies, be it local, county, state, when Travis passed away, unbelievable help from those agencies who called up and said, we got coverage, let your people go home. And I can't thank everybody enough from all of the agencies that helped out with that. But that's the type of things that we are seeing that we have to do. I think down the road, it's going to be more and more important, because there's a number of retirements that'll be coming up in the next few years. And I said this at the meeting in Camden the other night, the thing that is really, really becoming problematic is the fact that nobody can afford to buy a house. Rents are through the roof. I have officers now that live Stockton Springs. They're commuting an hour because there's nothing for housing here. So another thing I want to point out, if you get a call at a certain point of the day, you might see a deputy showing up. It could be a Rockport officer. If staffing is, so we're dipping into our other partner agencies, it could be a Rockland. But we all do that for each other. So I'll answer any questions. The sheriff's here. Feel free, Patrick, to hit any high points I didn't, your coverage, and we'll even let Kurt talk too if he wants.
So good evening. Pat Polke, your sheriff. Yes, it's coming on an election year, but it's not the reason for this.
Just saying, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
He'll have vote for Polke bumper stickers on it.
I do love to joke a little. I mean, especially in tough times.
Appreciate it.
As you're all experiencing, budgets are getting tougher everywhere. I just sat in a meeting earlier today with the commissioners of the county because of our unfortunate interim budget situation we may be going through. But the point is that, you know, our town's values are increasing, and our taxpayers are asking for us to find better ways to give them some kind of relief. So to Randy's point, when he called and said, I'm having staffing issues, which is not new to any of us, meaning all of the law enforcement agencies, but even if you look at, you know, private sector or even our other public safety functions, there's a lot of vacancies because of the challenges that mid-coast costs are giving us. You know, in my jail in particular, I have one person that's commuting almost 50 miles daily, so 100 miles round trip, just because of the benefits that we provide, and willing to make that commute. But it's a long day for that person. I mean, it's, you know, about an hour ride either way, and just, it's a challenge just in the mid-coast for us in general. So I think that's a bigger issue that we, as a collective, as towns and the county, need to look at some point. Maybe not tonight or the next few months, but soon. Because we just need that workforce here, and how do we help get that? But as far as the situation that Chief Gagne's talking about, the county was not too far off with a similar problem a year and a half ago. We had about half of our staffing that we needed. Fortunately, the commissioners did see some of the problems, gave us a little more funding to increase either pay or benefits or other things, brought us in line to be comparable with the local police departments. And we've seen, you know, to our fortune, we are now fully staffed. That is not the case everywhere, and it may not be the case for us for long, depending on how, you know, budgets go and different things. So the point in particular was we looked at what we could do in the short term and how can we make this work for the long term using this version to make that happen. So to the chief's point, we're kind of taking the slow bites at that apple to make sure these are things that we can sustain and can then learn lessons from to teach us how do we change the future. So
Better allocation of our staff in higher call volume times is much more beneficial. And the fact that we can explore those things. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to cut staffing in Rockport or any of that. You know, I'm still planning on going full budgeting for the number of staff we have. But taking this, you know, a month at a time, and we stay in constant contact reviewing it. We're looking for anything that comes up that might be an issue. Patrick could have a staffing issue next week, and we would have to go back to doing business the way we had. But while this is working, I think it's a very good thing for us to look at, a model for us. If we can put our officers to work when we can do more of the proactive instead of reactive type policing, the things that people want to see. You want to see the officer at the basketball game at the high school. You want to see them out running radar. We want to see them out on patrol while you're out and about riding your bike or whatever in the afternoons. That's a better use of our resources. Not saying that those hours that the call volume is low, that things can't happen, because we all live in the reality that it can. But I think what we're doing right now is a step in that direction, and let's see where it goes. You know, we're going to have to evaluate it. When the summer months come up, everybody's call volumes go up, so we may have to make some adjustments there as well. So, take any questions?
Well, thank you to all of you for coming up with this great way of sharing. I mean, we talk generally about regionalization, and we know that there are ways we can try to save some costs, but this is how it really should be happening, is from the ground up, from the people who know how to provide these services and where the opportunities are to collaborate and work together. And I know overtime has been a huge issue for our department, and for something like this that might take some pressure off that.
Well, it's the quality of life for the employees too.
Yeah.
You can't work everybody every day because it just isn't good.
And unfortunately, the challenges are not going away. The demand for law enforcement is actually on the rise dramatically. And the cases that we see every day are more complex than they were years ago. We have a mental health crisis in Maine. Right now, if someone is struggling with mental health, there's only really two places they can go, is the local emergency room or the county jail. And the yellow flag process takes up awful lot of our time. A yellow flag firearms process can take anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. and can tie up a deputy and a detective, making sure that we follow all the rules that are in place. All the paperwork has to be done just so, as judicial review, a lot of things, and then the firearms have to be taken away in some cases. And with the red flag law that's just passed, we're still, we need to see where that goes, because that could tie up resources even more. So we do need to work together, is what Chief Gagné is saying, and we do have to rely on each other and back each other up. I think we do have a good working relationship. Our deputies are constantly coming through Rockport and Camden. They meet up with each other, with officers. Some of them have supper together and information share. So those are just some of the challenges. The biggest challenge is the mental health law, and the opioid epidemic is continuing to tie up a lot of resources.
I just have a question. Sheriff Polkey, maybe you can answer this one. Can you describe what the difference is in sort of lay terms between the sheriff's department and the local police department?
Yeah, so in Maine, the sheriff is by constitution responsible for law enforcement in the county. Towns can, in their charter, create their own police department if they choose. So in our county, 4 towns did that, which is obviously you folks, Camden, Rockland, and Thomaston. The other towns chose to stay with what the sheriff could provide based off the county budget. The challenge there is I think when we originally made those laws, which was a long time ago, and made the Constitution of Maine, that they didn't necessarily foresee our world today the way it is. And, you know, the sheriff did a lot of investigations and a lot of civil process. There was not a lot of actual active patrol. Here in Knox County in particular, Sheriff Pease back in the 40s actually started the first uniform patrol for sheriff's departments. So the difference is that really is police departments were more that local, walk around town, visit all the shops, do the stuff locally that was needed, and the sheriff was more of the long-term investigative, long-range rural investigations, that type of person. And then the state had a lot of the highway work, which eventually evolved into also covering rural patrol along with the sheriffs. So.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess the only other question is, and it kind of gets back to your jurisdiction and how you interact with the local departments. Are there trade-offs anywhere along here as far as our coverage that you see? I mean, I'm not hearing of any, but.
So ultimately, as the sheriff currently, I'm responsible for law enforcement no matter what. So what we've seen in other counties recently is police departments shutting down and just turning it over to the sheriff because they're just writing it out of their charters. Mexico PD in particular, if any of you had seen that article, they've gone almost a year and change with no police officers at all. They hired a consultant to try to fix it, but now they're entering into contract negotiations with the sheriff because their town is used to a certain quality of life and a certain response type. So they're choosing to go with a contract versus just being covered by rural patrol. So I think a lot of it will come down to what does an individual town want. I'll use Warren as an example. We've talked with Warren a few times. They're a much larger town than they used to be. They have a lot more call volume, but they are okay with the service they're receiving from us and have not sought to be in a contract. They're willing to just let the commissioners put the amount of money needed for rural patrol versus having a contract. So.
Good.
No more questions, we'll get out of here.
No, nice
Thank
work.
you
Thank you.
again for everything
And
you're
if any of
doing
you
for
have any
us.
questions, y'all have got my number, so reach out. If you hear any constituents, information, or anybody's got any questions, refer them to us. Happy to talk to anybody about it.
A great model for all of us, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Next on our agenda for discussion items is we have the EMS 6-month review. John, do you want to introduce this?
Sure, yes. So you recall we finalized the budget last year. I had made mention of a desire to come back and at a time really in the fall, once there's been really an opportunity to not only for the chief and staff to get their feet under them in terms of operating an EMS service that transports, utilizes an ambulance, establishes billing procedures, we've then receiving revenues from billing, and that took a great deal of time. So really the need was really to give a 6-month snapshot for everyone to get a handle of, for really first staff to get a handle on where that is, then for me to get a handle, and Megan, it's more of outside and how to fit into the town government. And now this is your first opportunity, really. You haven't really had a chance to dig into these numbers, and we certainly discussed some of the more broad-based metrics in terms of average response time, how many calls, that sort of thing. But we haven't talked maybe broadly about what has this effort been over the last 6 months. So what this effort is, and it's really a two-handed effort here. Megan did a lot of work on the financials, and Jason really providing the expected layout of how the last 6 months have gone. So the other thing that I think was important is a little bit to talk about the timetable. How did we get here? There's been a lot of conversation, and even part of the budget process in the spring with some new folks who weren't part of that prior process of like, well, how did we get here? What did we sign on to? What is this? And so I wanted to go, have this, ensure we go through that so that everyone understands this is the path to get to this point. And it's not just the 6 months, but it was years in the making prior to that point that got us to a place where we stand today, which is still with a lot more to learn, but a lot of experience, and I think a really strong handle on the operation we're running. So I'll hand it over to these two fine folks and let them give you a presentation.
And it looked like everybody's got copies of the handout that you guys are going to go over. Take it away.
All right, thank you. So first of all, Megan has put a lot of time into actually creating the slides. She's much more of a techie wizard than I am. The agenda that you see in front of us here, we'll go with the timeline. As John indicated, this isn't something that started a year and a half ago. I believe 7 to 8 years ago, the discussion started happening. The 2018-19 timeframe, the town of Rockport, along with Camden, Lincolnville, Hope, Penn Bay Medical Center, and Rockland, started meeting on a fairly regular basis. Most of the meetings took place at Penn Bay to discuss the concerns in our communities with response times, the service, the level of service that we were getting. We started the regionalization talks. I believe 2 different meetings. North Star came in to discuss options that they may have. They currently work in a regionalized capacity up in Franklin County covering 26 communities. They now are the sole individual contract holder for transfers for Penn Bay Medical Center. So this has been ongoing discussions. One of the big things that came through this process was a regional plan that Camden Fire Department's Matt Heath, Chief Farley, and Chief Wytalk had started putting together. So costs were discussed throughout that time frame. 2019, a very large article came out in Penn Bay Pilot in reference to regional service and the concerns that people were starting to express about what we were getting for service. 2022, We started
Can I
having
just
some.
interrupt? And that was sort of delays over response times. We had a contract with Northeast that on its face looked like it was a nice low-cost option, but in fact, we weren't really getting a lot of service at that point.
Correct. We didn't print the article, but the Penn Bay Pilot article actually laid it out. I believe the original cost that the 4 towns signed on was 32,000?
Yes, 32,000.
It was 32,000. The last price that we were to receive just before we decided to go on our own option was
Over 450,000.
over 450,000 in just 10 years. So
And that 450 was just our share of the cost. So Lincolnville, Hope, and Camden's also were going up equally.
And we were concerned that Camden was not going to sign that contract, which would have meant our share was going to go up even more.
Correct.
yeah, so that was the discussion. Camden actually went public at one point that they were going to start hiring EMS personnel. We did not want to get left out on the doorstep, basically, with another agency going out on their own. So we, at that time, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, started looking into the same options for us as well. The EMS committee that was formed, which I believe was a board member from each town, or 2 board members?
2 board members from each town, and each town manager or administrator.
So when that was created, when Northeast Mobile Health came in, meetings were happening on a regular quarterly basis. Around the 2021-22 timeframe, they weren't happening. We couldn't get quorums. Nobody was attending the meetings. And August 22 was the last time a meeting happened. So each town kind of was going in their own direction at that time, with the concerns that were happening within the contract. So the budget process, we started with 2 full-time firefighters in the 2023 year for FYI 24. The select board as well as the budget committee approved the 2 full-time firefighters to start, to be licensed at a basic EMT license level, to start providing service for the community as well.
And that's sort of an important point, because it wasn't just to create an EMS service. There was also this increasing realization that finding volunteer firefighters who could reliably show up at fires, you know, they were no longer employed by local businesses who would be fine with you leaving in the middle of the day to go to a fire. So there was this recognition that we now needed to hire full-time firefighters. So it's sort of a twofer is what we were.
Yeah, and it wasn't just for EMS. You just heard from the police department, it's a nationwide shortage, fire, police, EMS. We're very fortunate here in Rockport that we still have 25 volunteers. However, we do struggle at times with getting people up at 2 in the morning when we're going to the same place over and over again. We do have repeat places that we go to. Sometimes it's something different, but we are definitely struggling with that. So having that full-time aspect there to support me has definitely made a huge difference in the community in the way we're responding. So we did meet, John and I met with Camden 2023 with Chief Farley and the town manager Audra in reference to potentially working together in a joint effort, with each of us obtaining our own ambulance, each of us obtaining our own crews, working hand in hand, side by side. They cover their calls, we cover our calls. When they're not available, we cover theirs and vice versa. Any larger incidents, we automatically respond. The meeting obviously was several hours. I thought it was very productive. However, Camden chose to go in a much different direction. As you see in the paper, they went with a 5-year plan. I can't remember the price tag, but it's 15 full-time firefighters, EMT, paramedics, new equipment, with a completely different staffing model than what we're currently looking at. But those discussions were had. John and I had to look at where we were and what we wanted to do. Again, didn't want to be left on the doorstep. We had to make a decision to start pursuing our own option.
So, Jason,
Yes, sir.
so Camden decided to go off on its own, started investing in equipment and staff. Somewhere in there, it morphed into what they ended up with some kind of a hybrid with Northeast Ambulance.
Correct. So my understanding, their original plan was they were going to have a staffed paramedic Northeast ambulance with a staffed paramedic from Northeast in their station. At the time, it was a 12-hour shift because they weren't doing 24-hour shifts. The Camden Fire Department would supply the firefighter / EMT as the driver. Then Northeast had 2 additional ambulances that would cover transfers and additional calls. Since I'm not sure, recently, October 1st, maybe, Camden got the approval to go to 24-hour shifts. That paramedic from Northeast with their ambulance now stays at their station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, obviously, the shifts change with the Camden firefighter. But Northeast has since gone down a whole ambulance, and the second ambulance that's in the area is only on from 7 to 11 p.m. But Monday through Friday, that ambulance has typically gone out of town on transfers. For example, today, I think it did 2 different transfers down to Portland, so there's only 1 ambulance in town covering those 3 communities.
So did we ever have a conversation, I mean, if Camden was ramping up its commitment, did we then think to go back to talk to them about a different arrangement? Or, I don't understand why.
So we absolutely did, and I'm sure there were things happening at Jason's level, but the select boards were trying to, I mean, there was strong interest in doing this with Camden all along. And the select board didn't have time, they canceled every meeting we had scheduled with them to talk about this.
That was before this point where they went and made the decision to go get their own department, but.
The Northeast hybrid plan, I'm not sure if it was July 1st, but I don't know when that went into effect. Was it?
Was it by then, though, we were too far down our road? And
We were already, we were, December 2nd is when we officially started full-time shifts with our firefighter / EMT paramedics. So we were already 5-6 months into it at that point.
Okay.
The concern was, though, is they're working with a company that's private, that's in it for a much different reason than us as a community. The service of that company was statewide and is now down to literally 3 towns. So every contract that was out there was canceled. Penn Bay canceled their contract. Togus recently canceled their contract with them worth, I think, $1.4 million. So the business is significantly changing. Their business plan, their business model is not that of what a municipality-based fire EMS service is.
So it sounds like Camden's gonna end up basically with 100% of its own
I
department.
can't speak for what they're gonna do down
Well,
there.
it seems to be trending that way, but where I also wanted you, if you could clarify, somewhere along the line, this was put before the voters
Correct.
to take this step. Can you
Yep.
clarify for me where that happened?
The first time it was done was June of 2023, when the budget was approved for the additional 2 full-time firefighters, EMTs that we hired. The second time is June of 2024, when the EMS department was called out. Within the budget article itself, there was a department called out for EMS with the expenses and then the revenues in the revenue article.
But the original one, Megan, did detail the additional costs that were going to be involved with an EMS.
100%.
And then the second time, it also had the costs all
Correct.
detailed.
Correct.
And these presentations that were made, the first one, during the budget process of 2024, and then again, 11/13 of 2023, outlined several options that we were looking at in terms of what the cost of those services would be, what our potential revenues would be, and looking at different models. So we looked, I believe, at 3 models. One where we were providing 24/7 coverage. The second model was we were providing 12/7 coverage, and then contracting out for 12 hours of overnight coverage in total. And then the third option we looked at was not hiring our own paramedics, but contracting with another service to provide paramedics, and then we would provide the firefighter EMTs for the service. And ultimately, it came down to that cost-benefit analysis being done, and then the decision being made that we would go forward with a 24/7 service. But all of that was discussed in that November of 2023 meeting. And then again, there was an EMS workshop specific to this whole process, February 5th of 2024, which outlined all of this. It was a meeting with Jason, the potential medical director that we were looking at, and then a representative and resident from the Rockland EMS service. So we went through that whole process, and all of that was outlined in terms of what our options were, what our potential options were.
And the budget has been pretty spot on from what Megan predicted. And again, this was a prediction. We can't compare, I mean, I hear a lot, we have to compare to other communities, but we can't compare to Rockland based on their call volume, their size, and their square miles. Belfast and all these other communities, it's the same thing that we run into. But we were pretty close to spot on a budget standpoint. We were also very clear that from a billing standpoint, we were going to be somewhere in the range of $220,000 to $260,000 in revenue. It's a give or take back to the payer mix, so your Medicaid, Medicare, XYZ. So we've been pretty close. I mean, I don't know what our final number is going to be for the revenue because, again, we're still so new to this. We're only 6 months in. We're trending towards the numbers that we've picked, maybe even on the higher side if it continues. But everything that's been presented from day one has been almost exactly that.
So when you came up with the original budget figures, how did you know, how big of a department to create, or what were you using as your benchmarks to sort of like, because this didn't exist before, so.
Research.
Did you compare it to other towns and?
Correct.
Did you base it on what's the geographic coverage, the population size?
Basic staffing levels. What is the minimum staffing level that we can have to run a service, which is currently what we have.
We're at the minimum staffing.
That is correct.
Okay.
We worked with Chief Richards from Belfast, EMS Chief Booker from Waldoboro, and Chief Wytalk from Rockland mostly. I also worked with one of the head supervisors from North Star, the chief up at Togus. We did a significant amount of research. Megan did hers as well to find out what level we had to be at. And again, a 2-person shift is the bare basic that we would need to operate a service.
And then the cost of that 2-person shift is just the market cost to hire the people that are qualified.
We went through we looked at everyone's budget, what they have for equipment, what they have for ambulances, housing, every part of it. And we kind of took and stole and pillaged from everybody and created what's going to work for the town of Rockport. And again, it goes back to what works for Rockland or what works for Camden is not the same that works for Rockport. You know, Camden's going to be different than we are from the standpoint. They have, I think, 6 nursing facilities and 2 extremely large housing complexes for, I think it's 55 and older. We have almost none of them. We don't have a single nursing facility in Rockport at all. And I bet you that's a good half of Camden's call volume is those facilities alone.
Which would explain maybe why they're spending much more than we are for their ambulance service.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I think for Camden, I know that the nursing homes, for whatever reason, have gotten in a position where they don't, if somebody falls, they call the ambulance
Correct.
service to lift them. They don't
provide that level of service. Nope.
And then that's typically an ambulance that doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know what that volume would be. I would guess to adventure it's going to be extremely high, just those facilities alone.
I take you off your slides here.
I think it's important to know, after the February 5th, 2024 EMS workshop, the select board on their regular agenda had an item in there to essentially give the town manager their blessing to move forward with presenting an EMS department in the fiscal year 2025 budget. At that time, the board was presented with what our cost estimates were in terms of expenditures, and then what we thought would be reasonable collections for medical billing. And through their conversations at that February 12th meeting, ultimately decided to move forward with creating that EMS department.
And through the process, from the meetings that we had, the open meetings, the open houses, the budget process, the select board process, we did not get a single no or a negative, we do not want this, not one. From a taxpayer, I should say that. Northeast was not in favor of it, of course, but that was the only person or group that was against what we were doing. I don't believe there was a single person on the budget committee at that time that had anything in negative or was against it, as well as the select board.
I think the context at the time was the county had gotten in a position where the 911 dispatch had just totally cratered in on itself. And one day when you called 911, it wasn't Knox County answering the phone, it was Waldo County. And I think that was sort of also a wake-up call that you can't just wait. If you think Northeast is on its last legs as your ambulance service, you can't wait for them to fall apart and then decide you're going to put together an EMS service. Because what was happening in the county is it ended up being hugely expensive for the taxpayers because of what the steps the county had to go through to try to replace the 911 service. And we wanted to be proactive in the interest of our residents. And I think that's what we were hearing from Jason and Megan and other folks. And this was happening statewide. You know, we weren't the only community that was having to deal with this because these for-profit ambulance services were really struggling.
13 other communities in the last now probably 2.5 to 3 years have left private to go municipality-based fire EMS. The big one that's been talked about is the Brewer Northern Light. That contract's ending, I believe, next year, and that one, I believe, is coming to an end as well. Same issues.
Any of those towns smaller than Rockport?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Woolwich is the first one I can think of offhand. Brownville, up in Brownville Junction, it was Brownville Ambulance Service. I don't have that list with me, but I did present that at the last one of the meetings.
Unfortunately, it's just not a business model that works.
money with,
Providing an EMS service is not a cash cow. It's you're not going to come close to breaking even. So the way that these private companies have made it work is by doing these extra transfers and things like that take them off the ability to being able to do 911 calls. And when we get to like the financial piece, as Medicare and Medicaid change what their allowable rates are to be billed, it's a significant amount that providers are then forced to essentially write off because they're not going to pay that. And it's not a business model that you can sustain for a for-profit business that is either losing their transferability like Northeast did with Penn Bay, or unfortunately, it's just not going to work for them.
So just could play this out a little bit. So if we did not have our own ambulance service today, what would happen if somebody needed an ambulance?
They'd wait.
How would
They would be
call
waiting.
911?
They'd be waiting.
What's that?
They would wait for whichever agency would be available, depending on the location.
So the 911 service would alert Camden, would alert.
It would depend on if Northeast and Camden are still working together or that agency, it would depend on the location. But yes,
It might come from Rockland.
It depends, though. This is what happened with Rockland had to put their foot down with Northeast. When Northeast was out on transfers on a continuous basis, Rockland was getting called to Camden almost daily. And they finally had to stop and say enough. Like, we have to stay and protect our own community And it was a big issue. It was actually a public issue that was well-known.
Yeah.
Well, I know there was a study done about the regionalization, you know, having Camden, are you guys
I
going to
think
talk about that?
that's it,
Yeah.
that's in
Okay.
here. We'll go over that. So we started in January with first responding with the ambulance, with our crews working 24/7. We responded to every EMS call. Northeast had the contract through April 1st. Unfortunately, they were not willing to relinquish it to the town of Rockport, so we responded to every call behind them and supported them. April 1st, or during that time frame, we did respond to 117 calls. April 1st, that morning at 7 a.m., we took over full responsibility for the town of Rockport, with the crews taking all the EMS calls. We do have mutual aid contracts with Rockland, Thomaston, Cushing, Union, as well as Northeast Mobile Health, so we do have mutual aid agreements with all these communities. The big thing that was discussed at the very beginning of this is billing. Billing was not something that you flip a switch and bills start coming in and we work with the billing agency. It's taken Megan, well, we just got the final sign off on billing for VA this week?
Yeah.
This week.
Today.
So we're,
Since April 1st.
yeah, since April 1st. So
And we
it,
knew that was gonna be a process, so it's not surprising that it took this long, but
our billing company is a nationwide billing company. It's a large company. They do an amazing job. If you looked at their reports, they would blow your mind. They're hundreds of pages of data. But we are working with them closely on a weekly basis. Corey Bonavie, our paramedic supervisor, is in touch with them on a weekly basis to update, change things that we're looking for Megan and the reporting part of it. We have done some transfers when available. Our 911 truck and on-duty crews stay at the station. Penn Bay actually just called. They were looking for a transfer. We didn't have anybody available, but if we have people that are willing to come back, we will take a transfer to help Penn Bay out when the other agencies aren't available. We've had about 8 of those, so that has been some additional revenue that we did not put in there because that wasn't something that we thought we would have manpower for, but we do. So we're still responding to the calls. We had 55 EMS calls just in the month of September. So it's not a small volume that we see. It does go up and down, believe it or not. August, the summertime, was one of the slowest months we've had. But of course, September came and it spiked right back up. We will go a day or maybe,
What happens in August that,
we don't know. Fire calls, EMS, and it wasn't just us, it was other agencies as well, saw a deep drop in call volume.
is that because they're gone or?
People are leaving town, I don't know.
Huh.
I do know that, you know, out of the 55, we've had some stretches where we had 13 calls in 30 hours last month. So we do have times where, for us, that's a lot. You go to Belfast, you know, they do 18, 19 a day on average, but they also cover 6 other communities. They cover a big area. We've started a new inventory process that we're working through to minimize our inventory. There is obviously a standard that Maine EMS requires us to keep on inventory. We now have a whole process where we're keeping that at a minimum level so that we're not overstocked in certain areas to help on the budget process there. As I indicated, we have all the mutual aid partners out there. It will come in, oh, it's right there. Since April, we've been able to collect over $16,000 in revenue from mutual aid. So that's us. For example, Union uses us for a paramedic intercept. When they're coming from Union, if they need a paramedic, we'll intercept. Our paramedic gets on board with them, travels to the hospital. So that's an $800 invoice that we send them. I know the question came up in the last budget meeting, I believe from Steve, in reference to $600 is what we charge. It's $800. For example, that $800, we were, from the station time we left to the time we got back was 33 minutes. So yes, we do make money on these. I feel it's a very good amount of money for the short amount of time, especially on paramedic intercepts. We have been doing several calls a week for Northeast Mobile Health in Camden. We were just at Quarry Hill. I just got to speak to Mr. Mitchell back here today, but we went to Quarry Hill again today and transported from there. So we are staying busy, not only in our community, but helping other communities out as well. We've been doing, every quarter, we're doing joint training with Rockland, both on EMS and on the fire side. We are hoping to start planning a regular, every 2-month training with Rockland, starting this new coming calendar year. And when needed, we do work with Rockland for supplies. For outreach, we've done a couple CPR classes for the community. We have been attending all of the football games as well as soccer games at the high school. Obviously, the crew is still on call for 911. For example, they were at the football game on Saturday, and an EMS call came in. They did leave, but they did return after. We've been doing the fire prevention at the elementary school. We did a large Halloween event at the YMCA. We've been doing tours of the station. We were at the Donut Festival helping down there. I think we had 16 members of the department down there throughout the day helping out at that event. We have started that, we created a new survey about a month ago that John and the town approved, that we send to every single patient that we have contact with. You don't have to put your name or anything like that. It's a 6-question survey from not good to excellent with 6 different questions, and then there's 2 comment boxes. At the very, very end, there's some comments that Megan included in there, but out of all the surveys that we've received back, 13 already, and we just started getting these back. Every single one has had nothing but excellence, except for one was good, because he couldn't see out the back window. That was the only reason he didn't give us an excellent, is because he couldn't see. We've had multiple people stop into our station to thank us. We did have a gentleman stop in 3 or 4 weeks ago to thank the crew that happened to be there for him, was on duty. They saved his life. He wasn't breathing. They were able to get there in 3.5 minutes, and he was able to walk in under his own power several weeks later to thank the crew for it. We also worked with the local doctor's office next door for an open house community day.
The public CPR class was excellent, by the way. I did have a chance to attend that.
And we
so-
did a private one as well for a daycare. They donated some funds. It was for all the teachers, had to be accredited again. So I think there was 7 of them that came, and they did a private CPR class for that daycare that had to have the certification. Some laws have changed with Maine EMS. So all of us that have been driving ambulances, I'm on my 34th year doing this. I started when I was 16 in high school, and back then we were driving for Camden First Aid Association. Now you have to be a licensed ambulance operator and have to go through this process. So we do now have 6 of the actual volunteer firefighters that have obtained this license so they can drive the ambulance. And the joint training we covered.
So we did some work to look at what the communities around us are paying for fire and EMS services combined. We couldn't do one or the other because some towns combine their fire and EMS budgets, other towns have them separate, so we decided to just combine them across the board. In this chart, you'll see the towns that we looked at in our area, the population of those towns, the square miles that they cover, and then the net fire EMS budget combined. So this takes into consideration their expenses minus their revenues to get the essential impact to the taxpayers. Then one of the benchmarks people seem to be looking at is what the cost per resident is for that service. So you'll see this chart is actually organized by the cost per resident. So we're the 3rd lowest in the general area in terms of that total cost per resident. We employ 9, we have 9 full-time employees. We do generally just cover Rockport, but we are available for mutual aid. And then the next 2 sections are total EMS calls for 24 and 25, and then total fire calls for 24, 25. Really, the only thing that this chart shows is that we're not out of line in our operational costs for a fire and EMS department. I think within this, Shore Rockland is employing more people. Their budget is $1.5 million more. but they also have a much higher call volume than we do. So they're not operating with one operational shift per day where we are. So basically that is what this chart is showing. The Rockport number for EMS calls for 2025, that's a different color because that is only since we started transporting. So that's April 1st, 2025 to September 30th, 2025.
So that's a 6 month.
Right.
So, Megan, you've got our net fire and EMS budget of, I'm having trouble reading this.
Of
So
$1,047,900.
Just over $1 million. But just the EMS department gross was, 1.3 million.
Yeah, and they have, I want to say, almost 500,000 in revenues between what we estimated to come from the Weidman Fund to help offset unpaid claims. Our claims were budgeted, I think, I'd say 220, either 220 or 250,000. We had private donations coming in. We budgeted 50,000 for mutual aid. So all of that combined, I want to say, was close to 500,000.
But I'm just trying to find, where's the fire department costs? Because
So
these are combined.
it's added in there, but the fire department also has revenue. So
What do they get revenue?
the bulk of their revenue comes from their capital reserve accounts that offset major capital purchases. So one of the biggest ones in the fire department is the lease payments that we have on the new fire trucks. It's almost $200,000. So out of that equipment reserve, we're also budgeting a revenue of $200,000 to offset that expense.
So again, the gross on fire is about, based on the current budget, is about 856,000, and then EMS is about 1.35 million. I don't know, it just seems like it should be more than $1 million net, but.
That's what it came to, and I
All right,
I
I'll
took
trust your
the
numbers
total
on it.
expenses
I'll
and
trust your
the
numbers.
revenues.
And that's, you're using the net figure, you're using the revenue that you had projected, not what we're actually, we don't know for sure if
Correct.
we're gonna generate.
And I'll talk about like the revenue projections and stuff when we get to
Okay,
that section, which
sorry,
might be
I'm
next.
jumping
That's
ahead
okay.
on you.
Any other questions on this section? So the regionalization, as Denise, you mentioned it, right? 2019-20, Matt Heath, Chief Farley, and Wytalk had created, it was a fairly in-depth, lengthy Excel spreadsheet. I think it was 6 to 7 pages to break down what it would cost for Camden, Rockport, and Rockland to regionalize with one chief, 3 district chiefs, and then break it down from there. Again, Maine EMS has a certain standard for coverage for EMS. The total cost at that time, the presentation that I think it was in front of our select board, John, did we not present it to the select board? We did, correct?
We discussed it.
We discussed
How
it.
many times?
The total cost for the 3 communities to regionalize would have had a budget of $12,080,000 a year. That cost for Rockport at the time would have increased our budget individually up to 2.8 million, or 3.2 million?
2.6.
2.6. That's why we have glasses. It would have been $2.6 million. And again, this goes back to you have to have a certain staffing level to cover a certain area. So the figures, Chief Wytalk took some time to go through that with current cost of living, price of salaries, benefits, and everything. And even today, it would still be another $800,000 to us to meet the standard for all 3 towns to join as a regionalized program. Because Rockland currently has a staffing level of 23, so they're the highest. To equal us all out on a playing field, that would be a significant increase for us to go to a regionalization plan now. However, 8 years down the road, that isn't to say we could all start reducing our apparatus, our equipment, even potentially personnel. But the apparatus and your equipment are the biggest price tags that we have out there right now. We just went from a full-size engine down to a mini pumper. So once this mini pumper goes in service, we will be reducing our fleet from a full-size truck that currently costs $850,000 to the one we just purchased for over $400,000.
So those numbers are combining both fire and EMS?
Correct.
So we.
Those are the original numbers in 2019-22. It was for fire and EMS.
We've never really explored combining just EMS.
Rockland doesn't, they are fire and EMS though. There is no, most of the municipalities are fire and EMS. They're not one or the other.
Yeah.
Again, Camden is fire and has started the EMS process. Based on what's going on in a year or two, they're gonna be fire and EMS as well.
And
fully.
our 21%, it looks like 21.5% share is based on what the
It's based on population.
population, okay, all right.
If I can just add one thing on this as well, and Denise mentioned one side of this, which is obviously there are aspects of all of this which benefit the fire side of the equation. But let me also just say this, our circumstance with our volunteers is so strong, comparatively, regionally, comparatively anywhere, frankly, that is a huge, huge benefit in our corner that we cannot like lose sight of. This is a big investment for the community to go down this road, no doubt about it. But were it not for the volunteers,
Oh, God.
this number would be dwarfed. And so we have to be thankful for, yes, we're paying when they work, when they train, when all of those things. But we have to really be thankful for our volunteers because they make what could be a really tough situation much worse. And, it can get lost in these conversations when we look at the budgets and so forth. But the amount of labor and never mind labor, never mind cost, but culturally what this means to our community is so important. And so I just don't want to get that lost. Comparatively to those two towns, it's a very different conversation. And that's what sets us apart. When other agencies and other communities see Rockport Fire rolling in, they feel a whole lot better. And that's a huge credit to our guys and chief and everyone over there. So,
And without the volunteers, we could be closer to that $2.6
We would
million
be,
number.
absolutely.
exactly.
And while we're on the number, Megan, ballpark for me what the percent of the municipal budget the fire and EMS represents. Is it like 20%?
No, not that much. I think our overall.
I'm just talking expenses, not net. I think that based on the budget I'm looking at, EMS is about 10%, give or take, of municipal budget, and fire is
That sounds about right.
less than that,
A little
maybe
bit, yeah,
like 7%.
yeah.
So,
That sounds about right.
okay, all right. Just
In just the 13 years I've been here, things have drastically changed, at least in our county as a whole. When I started, we went to Rockland, we went to Camden, and we went to Hope. Now, a lot of these other agencies, not these three, but other agencies are struggling for volunteers. We've been to St. George 3 times for working structure fires and actually participated in fires in St. George. I mean, that's a 22-minute ride in a fire truck. We're on second alarm for Lincolnville. We're on third alarm for Waldoboro. We go to Appleton now. We've been to Appleton, I think, just this last calendar year, probably 3 times. So some of these departments are struggling. There's some that only have 7 or 8 people on their department, and none of them work in that community. So the struggle on the fire side is huge. So it's changing everywhere. Unfortunately, it's progressively getting worse and worse everywhere you go.
So when we call out to Appleton and we send our fire trucks up there, are we then able to bill back?
Fire side, no one's billing at this point because it's not done anywhere that I know of.
With the exception of if there's a car accident in town and it's not a Rockport resident, we can file with their insurance company for restitution. And we have seen significant collections because we seem to be the accident capital of Knox County. We've seen significant collections through that process, and we really aim it towards people that are not Rockport residents because they're not paying for our fire
Right.
service. Our
And
Rockport residents
do you
are.
do that billing? Who does that billing?
We have a third-party
Oh,
contractor that does
A
it.
different third party.
Different than your EMS.
She has access into our fire side, and
Yeah.
on I think it's a weekly basis, she goes in and looks at all the car accidents, and then she runs all of that. She does it. She works with the police department to get the police reports. If it's a non-resident,
Yeah.
then it goes to the insurance company and bills.
That's great.
We've had some that have paid accidents that have paid up to $5,000.
Well, and I think it's wonderful that we're supporting our other communities, but eventually we probably need to ask the hard questions of if they're sort of not providing for their own fire services, and then we're called as a result.
And keep in
What's
mind,
fair in that?
it works both ways too. So when we have a fully involved structure fire, we invite most of them, not St. George, I mean, that's a hall, but you know, the St. George, obviously, the buildings that have burnt down that you've seen in the news are massive, massive, massive buildings. But most of the, Lincolnville comes to our calls, Hope, Union, all these other towns do come to our town for, it's a joint effort.
So in terms of our billing, we count EMS calls in terms of patient contacts, because you could have an EMS call where there's 6 patient contacts that you have. If you transport them, it's a billable. If they're not transported, it's a sign-off, but it's still a patient contact for our EMS employees. So since April to the end of September, we've had 348 total patient contacts in that time frame. Of that, 165 of them were non-billable, so we did not transport them. They signed off on their situation, and then 183 of those calls were billable patients. So over 50% of them. Out of those 183 calls that we had, the total amount billed to insurance companies or self-pay patients was almost $178,000. Due to the insurance process as it is, most of these write-offs are Medicare and Medicaid. Of that $178,000 that we've billed, almost $60,000 of it we've had to write off. Which then leaves us an expected amount to be collected of $118,000. It is most departments would rejoice to be at over a 50% collection rate, so I am happy in the fact that our collection rate is currently showing over 50%. We have to date collected cash in hand of almost $60,000, and then we have rolling accounts receivable of $59,000. Unfortunately, what we've seen through this process, and we were also told of this prior, just because there's been, so in September, I had calls that we were continuing to do adjustments for, that the call actually happened in April. So just because as of September, our accounts receivable and our allowances were those numbers, doesn't mean that in October, I'll have additional adjustments for April, May, June, July. That's just the nature of how insurance companies operate.
So the 58,000, or 59,000 there, the 58,682 could go down
It could.
a little bit.
Yep. John and I spent a lot of time about his desire for me to forecast what these numbers would look like for the next 6 months. And I really just don't feel comfortable doing that. One, I don't have enough data. Two, our build and insurance write-offs amounts have been all over the place the last 6 months. So in June, I think our total write-offs were like $2,500, but our total write-offs in September were $17,000. So it's too variable for me to feel confident to try to forecast what the next 6 months will look like. I think even after we have a full year of billable time, I still don't think that we're gonna have enough consistent data to be able to project that. I think that we're really going to be looking at like a 24-month period before we can confidently, with some sort of process, project what our monthly and annual revenues
But it's
will
always
be.
going to depend too, right, on who your patients are. I mean,
Correct.
and you can't predict who your patients are.
Correct.
And when we have a higher rate of Medicare patients here in our community, so
Yeah, but over time, it should settle out.
It
to where
should, but
you can do it.
you're always
Do
going to
better
have that
for it.
variable.
There always will be a variable,
Yeah.
and right now that variable is so significant that I wouldn't even feel comfortable giving you projections, because I just don't think that they'd be accurate.
So Megan, if you could pause on that a minute. So as far as municipal expenditures and budgeting goes, if we have billing, you know, we have receivables on the books at our fiscal year end.
They roll over to the next year.
The receivables roll over.
And the
And we can't-
revenue,
we-
the revenue allocated up till June 30th will stay in that fiscal year. Cause I can't keep a fiscal year open for the sake of medical billing.
So we have no way to essentially backfill for revenue we're going to get in the future in a
Correct.
municipal budget.
And when it comes to using like the Weidman Fund to offset like Rockport residents that are either self-pay or have deductibles and have uncollected amounts, come June 30th, we could allocate a portion of the Weidman Fund to offset those, and then if we end up collecting them after the fact, then we just end up collecting it after the
What
fact.
percent of our billings ballpark do we think might be Rockport residents that we could do that with?
I don't know because we don't track that information within our billing reports. What that would take is our outstanding call numbers. Jason and I would work through that and see who had Rockport addresses and then.
But even if they have a Rockport address, that doesn't mean they're a resident. Someone could be visiting, which happens, campgrounds, stuff like that. We went to the campground several times this summer. Most of these people are not residents that you,
And the Weidman Fund is specifically and exclusively for
Rockport
Rockport residents. Okay.
So there'd be a process that we'd have to undertake to figure out what amount would be allocated for that.
It's an interesting conundrum. But right now, when I'm looking at a document you prepared, Megan, a while back on the EMS and, you know, projected then, total revenues is 408,000 for a full year.
I think that was before we understood what our payer mix was gonna be. When we signed on with our billing company, it's the same billing company that's used almost, I think, in every service in Knox County. They allocated our Medicare, Medicaid mix much higher than what our initial estimates were.
So does that mean that number, they would put that number higher than 400, I mean, in the budget?
No, less, because Medicare and Medicaid pay less.
Yeah, and in the budget, we've got 485 for the year. It sounds like.
That includes billables, it includes the amount coming from the Weidman Fund, it includes private donations for the Lucas machine that we bought, it includes mutual aid, so the amount in the budget isn't just for billable calls.
But even with that, we're not doing too poorly relative to that
We're
number.
not.
The first quarter, we're, you know, somewhere in the ballpark of, what do we have, $60,000. You know, that puts us at 240 for the year if we
Right.
keep at that trend.
And I think in this year's budget, you can look, but I think it was 220 to 250,000 that we had allocated just for billable calls. So I think if we stay on course to where we are, I don't think we're gonna have a problem meeting the amount that we budgeted for.
Great.
In terms of other revenue collected, we had 20 mutual aid requests of our service from April to September, which resulted in $16,000 coming back to the department for that. And then in that time frame, we thought it was important to state we do have a backup ambulance that was our initial ambulance while we were waiting for the new one to come in. That ambulance was used for 27 calls, saving the taxpayers $21,600 because we would have then been forced to pay the $800 to another community to cover that call. So I think it's important to look at the service as a whole and what those savings are.
That's great.
And this,
And I just want to say, I mean, I appreciate so much the work you have done. I know it's a big expense item. It's a big reason our budget this last year that we approved in June was higher than any of us would have liked. But for anyone who has a loved one who needs an ambulance to come fast, I'm not going to say it's priceless, but it is something we have to recognize, that that's part of what people expect from their town, is that we can respond and be there for them. And I think what you've also demonstrated, though, is that we're doing this in the most fiscally responsible manner possible. A lot of work went into the analysis and the decision-making to create this service. And now, even at its earliest stages, the numbers are proving that we're within the ballpark, and that will only get better. So thank you for all the work you did on this presentation.
Yeah, it's
I can
great.
just
Questions?
add one other piece of clarification. This past fiscal year was the first year we had fully staffed and we're going through a
This current fiscal
fully
year.
loaded, if you
Yes.
will,
Correct.
the budget.
The firefighters started
Uh,
July, August of last year,
They started in August of 2024.
2024.
We already had a year.
And then the paramedics started December 2nd
Of 2024.
of 24.
But in terms of like budgets and taxpayer impact, the full brunt of that was felt this July.
This year.
It's an excellent report.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay,
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, our last discussion item on the agenda is budget process review. And I could start it off, or John, if you wanted. I mean,
Yeah, so I put this on here, obviously there was a budget committee meeting last week, and then this is the first time the board's had a meeting since the workshop on the CIP, the capital improvement plan, for those who aren't in all that world of
In
everything as an
acronym
acronym.
not to be confused with comprehensive planning.
Right, yeah.
CPI or
there's a-
CIP.
CIP, the PI, yeah. But yeah, this is really just an opportunity for, for the four of you, or five if Kim was here. I know she wished she could be here. She had another event she couldn't miss. But just to talk about where we are, where things stand. Obviously there's a lot that's going on, and I think from my perspective, this EMS review is a big part of what we're trying to do, which is answer questions, answer some detailed thoughts that have been raised, and there's a lot of good questions that are out there in the community. We've heard some in the budget committee, we heard some in the spring, we heard some, just as we're sort of going around town and doing what we do at Hannaford or wherever we might be, throwing yellow bags in a hopper, wherever it takes for us to get all the stuff that we get. And so, I think EMS is a big, it's a big aspect of what's changed in Rockport, right? The town I grew up in was fully volunteer firefighters, except for one fire chief, who I knew forever and a day, and we all love dearly. But what does that mean? Why do we do that? What is the purpose of it? What is it working? Is it not working? I think you can see from we hear, it's early still. There's still a lot to learn, a lot to improve upon, but the initial returns are good. On that one aspect, we heard from Chief about some work that, again, another issue that came up in the spring about regionalization and how could the police departments work together better, find a way to help our residents. We've got that. And that's outside of sort of the more structured CIP and different things that have occurred. But, that's traditionally, we're in a sort of a different world right now in how we've been doing this. But traditionally, that's somewhat how this has gone every year. For 20 years that I've done this, you take the information you hear, and you work on it, and you try to find a good answer to what that might be. Or you change what you do. And what's been good is that feedback has been very helpful for staff, for myself, and I think that presentation on the EMS side, but all these others, people are hearing what the concerns are. Our staff is hearing the concern. They, many of them live here too, and they want to find a better way to do this and a cheaper way to do this if we can do it. And so, we're a long way from a budget.
That's been the hard part about this, is that usually the proof is in the pudding of what's presented to you all. And so it's a little difficult to get ahead of what we're usually doing, because that's usually the product of everyone's effort. But I appreciate our department heads who've pitched in to try to provide some of these answers early. Provide answers to the test a little bit early, so that the board, the budget committee, the community say, look, we're not satisfied with the way things have gone either. And if that means we have to change how we operate, change the way we think, change the way that we do things, we do it. And so I'm happy with that effort. I think there's more to do on that end, and it's a big town, but I'm encouraged with the earlier results. So.
That's great, and I think for those of you who might be coming in sort of in the middle of all this, we're sort of doing things differently this year. Last year by last year I mean in the budget process for the spring of 2025, we had a very engaged budget committee that was there at every meeting, concerned at the costs that were being presented in the budget, wanting to sort of be more proactive. And as happens every budget year, when we work through the budget, we have questions, we have bigger picture issues that can't be resolved in the short time frame we have to approve a budget. But this year, we took those issues that came up during that budget process. The select board and the town manager wrapped those into our goals. So we got this information, we had talked about it between the select board and the budget committee, and we wrapped that into our annual goals this year to sort of look at some of those things. What can we do? And the efforts that we've just heard about from the police. I think there's a sensibility among our town staff, our select board, everyone really. We need to be looking for cost savings. We need to be serious about this. We need to look for ways to do this differently. And part of that effort has been thanks to this budget committee, who not only was super engaged last spring, but they have already started meeting. Typically under our charter, the budget committee doesn't meet until March, when there is a budget to start analyzing. But this year, the budget committee's meeting. They're talking about how can we get after this? How do we find the cost savings? How do we understand better the process? And I think that's a commitment that we all have. The select board, some of our members attend the budget committee meetings. We've got some representatives of the budget committee here tonight, that we understand that the tax burden these days is too high. And we're doing our best and want to do our best working together to find solutions to that, to find ways to do things better in Rockport that will help our taxpayers. I know some folks, I've received comments and words about a letter to the editor that was in the Penn Bay Pilot by one of our budget committee members. And I think, unfortunately, it was sort of accusing the select board and the town staff of not working in good faith on budget issues, accused us of not being transparent, trying to hide the ball on budgets. And, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I was disappointed to see that, because I felt like we were having a good process. A lot of it was information from 2017, 2020, older time periods. So a lot of us weren't even there at the table during that time period. And I think our attitude is, let's move forward. Let's be current. We've got a budget we're going to have to come up with this year. The town staff's already working on that budget. We had the capital improvement plan discussions to sort of lay out what are the issues Rockport has to think about in terms of capital projects. These are the big ticket items, and some of those will be in the budget this coming year. So we wanted to make sure both that the select board and the budget committee were aware of those items and could already start thinking about how do those get wrapped into the upcoming budget? Are there different ways to approach even those costs? So it's a very, we're fortunate in Rockport. We know we've got great volunteer firefighters, but we also have great volunteer citizens who have stepped up and are working with us on that. So I think we're trying it in a new way. We're putting an incredible burden on our town staff at a time that they're not usually doing budget at this point. That's a process that gets started more in December and works its way through to March. But we're getting in there early and trying to give our committed volunteers on the Budget Committee a chance to weigh in on these kinds of issues that are coming up now. So we're trying to stay positive and work together.
So Denise, we have the chair, Clay, and we've got Craig here. They're both on the budget committee. Do they want to, I mean, since they've got our attention, do they want to bring anything to our attention that you're working on or that we should be mindful of?
No, I think we've got
Come on up, Clay.
Where's the
Come
top?
on.
Oh, there is one of these mics, but
Oh.
then I'd have to.
Clay Tolman, the Budget Committee Chair. I think we have our next meeting December 5th, I believe. I'd have to check that, whatever the first
Maybe
Tuesday in
2nd, December 2nd.
December is. December 2nd, 6 o'clock right here. For anyone that wants to come attend that. In that, the Budget Committee as a whole is going to try to come up with kind of what, focus in on direction that we want to kind of go parallel with the select board and see if there's anything we want to bring to your attention to start kind of putting our heads together as two separate committees or boards. So I think from that meeting, we'll come up with some more input to feed towards you guys. But until then, I think we're kind of just getting our thoughts together, continuing to get our thoughts together, take some of the public input that we've been getting and put that, onto paper so it's a little more concise. But other than that, nothing major right now that we need to go over tonight.
Okay. Thanks,
Great.
Clay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clay, and thanks for your leadership on the budget committee.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof.
Oh, no,
Doing
you're
great.
good, you're good.
Anybody?
This is kind of like stating the obvious, but I have had some people, when they got their tax bills, come to me and like, you people all, the people say, they don't care about the budget. They don't know how much this tax bill is affecting us. And one thought that came to me after I'd have some of those is like, well, we are also getting those tax bills.
I write the check too, right?
And the people on the budget committee are also
Right.
taxpayers. So we are being mindful in the process. And I just trying to remind people that we're not an imported, paid professional group, just charging whatever we want and say, oh, Rockport, yeah, oh, we should have this. Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
are all
I-
trying to maintain our own tax
I
bills.
think the thing that kind of concerns me the most, and I take offense to it honestly, is that as a select board member, I'm trying to hide someone's opinion, or I'm trying to hide someone's recommendation. And to your point, we write a check as well, and that check hurt quite a bit more this year. But I also think about the services we provide, and I also think about the years that we didn't do the things we should have done. And therefore, we put ourselves into a very bad position several years ago where we had buildings falling down. We had, pipes leaking and breaking things, and we had to fix them.
Yeah,
And roads
yeah.
falling apart. And therefore, there were a lot of big ticket expenses that came our way. And there was a time when we had budget committees who said, no, we don't agree with it, and we still have bills to pay. And so I never want someone to think that there's an ulterior motive up here, that, we're saying we don't take recommendations or we don't value the input that's put in by the budget committee. I mean, we all are working very, very hard to make sure we can still live in this community and that we can still provide service to our residents of this community. So I agree. I think that there is some misconception in that, and I want to make sure we're able to break that down by working together and taking people's opinion. I also want to make sure we have people who continue to work in this community, who have benefits, who have pay, who aren't jumping ship to go to another community because we're not able to pay them and provide them benefits. So I just think there's a lot to be considered, and I want us to consider all of that, but I also want us to not put blame on one committee or another for making decisions that we need to make to run this community, so.
And I think the deferred maintenance has been a big one, from what I understand, with roads and things like that.
Yes.
And we had
Yes.
big storms.
Yeah.
You know, so some of those things in the last few years probably just ballooned.
When literally the first week I started on the job here, the sewer pipe that connected the town office to the sewer main
Broke.
collapsed.
Right.
That
Right.
was welcome back home, you know. That's where we are. That's where we were. That's where we've been. Now, there's a long way from that to, you know, where we are and what we need to be. And some of this is about planning. Some of it's talking about these are costs and be ready for what's next. I'm not gonna throw stones at my predecessors for the sewer line collapsing when I walk in the door. But what I would say is this: I think the only thing we can do is move forward. I think Denise
Absolutely.
is absolutely right about that. The only thing we can do is move forward and try to make the next budget as good as we can make it. And the budget committee can be a big part in that. Select board's a big part of that. The department heads. I'm not gonna get like irritated as I wanted to be about this part of this. I'm gonna pull that back because I'm gonna be a professional about what I do. I've lived here my whole life. I'm gonna live here until I'm in Seaview Cemetery, one of those lots that we priced
We're
out.
opening up.
I hope you bought it before the
I
rates
know,
went up.
I didn't. That's how foolish I am. I work with, 50 people or more who want nothing more than good things for the town of Rockport. And, sometimes we disagree about how they work. We disagree about, why did they charge me this or why did that go the wrong way? But we've got a lot of staff who give their heart and soul to make this place go and want all of us who live here to be successful in what that is. They've just got a job to do. And I, as having been sitting up here at one point and elected and done different things, we all can disagree about what's the right way to do this or that or the other thing. And that's the beautiful part about the budget process is we go line by line, department by department, and we have that conversation. And that's a great place to really talk about these issues. And there are some really big ticket items that are changing because of that feedback that we heard up here and out here, and it works. But what I have a hard time with is any sort of insinuation that there's anything other than trying to be upfront and honest about what we're doing. That is exactly what we're here to do. Now, we may disagree, and I'm okay with disagreeing. Had a great chat with Craig today, and we talked about a whole bunch of things, and we might agree on some, might disagree on others, but that's what you do. And that's how we have to work in a small town. We can't go throwing stones at each other. And you know what? I might be brought over and to say, you know what, geez, you're right on something I previously disagreed with. That's the beautiful part about the fact we're still a small town. And we can't let the politics of all that drive us to something that we're not. I'm open, our staff is open. We work really hard to try to shoot it straight and give people the information they need to make the decisions. That's you guys, it's the budget committee, it's the voters. And I don't appreciate the insinuation that something untoward is happening about that we're not trying to do just that. I'm okay with people disagreeing with conclusions I reach, but I don't appreciate the insinuation that somehow that I or my staff or anybody is trying to do something inappropriate. So, again, I can move on. You don't get this job without thick skin, so it's
Broad
elephant
shoulders.
tough.
Ours is all getting thicker as we
And that's fine. And we'll go to our next meeting. We're glad to get to work, and because the product is the budget and trying to get the best product out of that is what's the point. And I think we've got a group of people who really want to do that. The CIP meeting went very well. A lot of great questions, conversation. That's what it's about. And I
And
think
that was all recorded and online, so
Yeah.
anybody who wasn't there,
Watch
hasn't
it.
yet looked at it, it's available for everyone to see.
Absolutely, yeah. So, anyway, I'm sorry to get off, that's the only hard part about this is, hey, we're all trying to work through this, and, it's, as Michelle said, it's not fun to write that check. I have to write the check, we all write the check here.
I mean, I am
Let's
really
get
glad,
better.
though, that we're having, you know, because when you get into the budget process, for those who haven't been in it, and you get that giant binder and you start going through it, it's almost too late at that point, right? It's almost too late to talk about mowing contracts and all of the things that we kind of already have in place. So to have these conversations now and early and talk about the capital improvement and prioritize those things, that's absolutely the right approach, versus waiting until March when we're going, you know, line by line through a book that's already been, and we're cutting $10 for copying here and $50 for paper plates there. So, I mean, we're absolutely having the right discussions, and we're all in this together, and I think that's what people have to remember, is that no one is benefiting from having to sign a big check. There's no big Christmas bonus here that's going out to anybody. So, you know, let's work together, let's make sure we have our priorities in order, and let's work to make sure that the people of the town, the people of the community are taken care of and have the services that they deserve, because they're paying a hefty bill for those services.
And I will just add quickly, my last thing is that I am really glad, because I'm new to this process, basically. You know, the idea that they came up with the big topics, you know, to look in advance, and, you know, benefits was
The health
mentioned,
insurance
health
benefits
insurance,
task
those things were
force.
mentioned, and they're alarming. But looking earlier as things are happening now, I'm really happy because it didn't make sense to me my first time going through the budget, like, we're doing this in March, and we don't, you know, we're just doing numbers.
Right.
So I'm glad that we're getting to some of this
Absolutely.
stuff now,
Yeah.
and will be hopefully earlier.
Yep.
If we're done with that,
Yeah, thanks, I'm glad.
public,
for that part.
public service, Randy, can you turn the air conditioning back on?
Yeah, because it's hot in here.
If you,
touched a couple buttons, I don't wanna touch it.
all right.
It has been a little
If
bit
you,
of
it
freezing
went
for a
from
bit there, and then-
extremely cold to
Arctic
now it's
cold to
getting
like
stuffy.
pits of hell.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten to the Opera House mechanical systems
We're
yet.
gonna lose a few people in the audience pretty soon, I can tell.
Well, I think that's a good discussion, and for folks who are here and who are watching, I know some of you are very engaged in what's happening on the budget level, and, you know, we're gonna continue to do our best to make sure you get the information you need. We're not trying to hide anything.
I was just wondering, John, what was you referring to when you said things have changed already?
Well, I don't know how much Randy's still here? Yeah, Randy's still here. I can't say how much of what we're not filling from our staff and our payroll filling of a day from the police department, but let's say, more than 10% of our day, we're not filling with our own officers filling the shifts in terms of what's happening for a police day, because our shift, basically, we have 2 12-hour shifts is what we had been doing, with some help from the county. That's, again, I'm not supposed to get into details, so I gotta be careful, but you get my point, right?
I
Right,
get
right?
your point, I
Yeah.
just think that that's important that you bring that to the people so
Yeah.
they know that.
Right, we're gonna have reduced
Because
policing
you can read
costs.
into your conversation 100 things,
Yeah,
and I think that's the kind of thing that these department heads need to bring out to
Yeah.
the public so that they understand that. Because I wasn't putting
Yeah.
you on the spot. I
no, it's a good
No,
question,
fair
Rick.
question.
And I wanted to bring out, you know, what Greg Bowman did there, and that's something that we spend 40 grand every year on trying to, you know, get these roads and put a shoulder on. For just the cost of gravel, we can do that ourselves by and large on most of these roads. So it's one of these situations where, you know, you get incentive to do things and you give a pat on the back or whatever it might be. And there may be other ways. We had a group that before, I guess right after the budget got approved, it came to the budget committee and the select board and said, we gotta do more to kind of support our staff in them finding ways to save. So that's one way where it came about through his own ingenuity, and we should celebrate those things because it benefits all of us, you know? Yeah.
When I was at, and I'll just, take another minute, when I was at your last meeting, which was your
capital improvement meeting.
Yep, that's right.
I gotta honestly tell you, it scared the hell out of me.
Yep,
And I think the other people that are out there, the same thing.
yeah,
I gotta say that there's no way possible that you can do what's on that list.
No.
And I think you need to tell people that, and pick the one that you need to do, that's
Yeah.
it. But you can't do it all, and
No.
I'm absolutely honest, I'm just a back chair, armchair guy. It's too bad to see that Rockport school site go away, because that would be a perfect spot for a lot of your capital improvement projects.
Rockport's what?
the
The
site,
Rockport Common, the new
Elementary
park.
school,
Oh, the elementary school, okay, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was town-owned land, and that would've been absolutely perfect.
I hear you.
Yeah, I think one of the thoughts I had on that, John, is the way that was presented, it sounded like it was it is a plan, but
It is.
it doesn't mean that we're absolutely gonna do all this stuff. It's more a collection of all the things that we should or need to do or could do. And it was designed to be presented so that everybody had all the things out there that are in need of attention or could be done better. It didn't necessarily mean we were gonna go,
No, I think it was great,
Yeah.
the presentation was great, I just think that if you get ready to go to the town, you're gonna have to pick out some priorities.
I totally agree
Absolutely.
with you. Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the point, I think, was, I'm glad that was your takeaway, because, you know, we had those 4 buildings that were in there, we got the harbor, we've got, you know, some road work and pedestrian work. That's, those 6 alone that we talked more about in that meeting, that's a substantial cost, just talking about those 6 items, and then there were more that were in there. There's some prioritization that has to happen from this group and from the community at large,
But the-
you know?
But the public out there thinks that you guys have just planted a seed. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No,
No, no, you're not.
no, you're
Come
right.
up to the mic, because I know that the people, I hate to make you do that, but the people at home can't
Yeah.
hear you,
Sorry. Come on down, Rick, yes.
because now they'll only have half the,
Half the voice.
Yeah.
Hi, Rick Mitchell in West Rockport. I'm not being disrespectful, I'm just saying that the public is thinking a seed has been planted and all these capital improvements have to be done. Yeah, that just sends everybody's blood pressure right up, you know, because we live in a town that's special. I agree. I've been here my whole life, literally my whole life. And I think it's as special as anybody does. But if I want to stay here, it's you can't do all the stuff that you get on that thing. So you got to tell everybody, these are the things that we got. You know what? I mean, I've got certain things at home I can do, and there's certain things I can't do. Okay?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's
and we need
where
to
I'm
have
coming
that
to.
community discussion about
Yeah.
what are our priorities? What do
Yeah,
we-
and I think that will come, and I think that the public wants to, you know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for
Agree.
you guys to do your job, I understand. But at the same time, you get to take a look and say, hey, you know, what's this mean? That's why I picked up on that thing that you said, a lot of things have changed. I think it's great what Chief's doing back here. I really do. That's fine, you know,
Yeah.
but at the same time, there's a lot to be done and a lot of things that maybe won't be done,
Yeah.
you know? And maybe privately fund some of that stuff,
Yep.
you know?
absolutely.
You're right.
So
That's right.
Yep.
Good
That's
points.
Comments.
really all I had to learn for you.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
thanks. And for those watching, I think that's important for us to echo that. That's a long-range plan that's really just, we can't forget about these town buildings and that there will be potentially the need for changes in the future, but it's part of a much bigger discussion.
Yep. That's right.
Anything else on really we've covered a lot of bases tonight, so thank you to all of you for coming and listening to it all.
Sticking it out.
and participating and helping us make this a better town. Do we have a motion? Oh, liaison reports. What do we have in the way of liaison?
I've got some things I can start. The Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force. We've, just a quick update, we've had eight weekly meetings where we focused in on the 155 goals, strategic goals in the comprehensive plan, and we've determined that of the 14 committees and task force and 8 town departments, we've sort of divvied them up to the most appropriate committee to help us kind of figure out the a more specific timeline to when they're going to be able to implement the goals and accomplish the goals. We expect to now, we're going to circulate all those goals to the various committees, and then we're going to hold joint meetings with them to, to hear their ideas on how they're going to implement them and how quickly and that sort of thing. We'll be providing performance measurements to the select board on a periodic basis, depending on how much we accomplish in those meetings. But as of November 1st, 15% of the 155 strategies have already been completed, so.
Good, nice.
We're
Way to go.
already out and ahead of the game. My other liaison report is on the planning board, which was pretty quiet this week. It sounds like a Lake Wobegon line, but we just had findings of fact for the MRC application, which was really non-controversial, but they just had to get the lights on the new tennis courts higher and a little bit stronger. But the good news is that's not a big change because they're all downlighted and they're all designed to shelter to preserve the night sky, and they're behind trees that are much higher than the lights are going to be. But this will allow them to qualify for U.S. Tennis Association standards for competitive tournaments.
Great.
So we may have some of that coming to our
Nice.
neck of the woods.
Very nice.
That's all the news from my neck of the woods.
Michael?
My liaison report really is short. It's that I'm going to try to be better at having a comprehensive liaison report next time.
There you go. Mine's even shorter. I was away, so on business, so, but I'm the budget committee,
Yeah.
so.
I would say the Pathways, Camden Rockport Pathways Committee, they're working on things actively, and Conservation Commission is doing wonderful things. I'm just lacking the details to give you.
Details to
There you
report
go.
on.
That's fine.
That's fine. I mean, I think both Parks and Beautification and Library Committee are going fine. And we'll have to be looking for some new volunteers who are interested in those committees. So that's, you can reach out to me or reach out to the town for that. Sewer Ordinance Task Force is, I think, officially ended. We've now got our new sewer ordinance. The voters approved it overwhelmingly, so
Yay.
we'll carry on. And,
What about the regulations?
oh, yeah, we do have to work on the regulations. Okay, you're right, we're not disbanded. Get those
You're
reg-
disbanded, I was just wondering which of you were doing.
Oh. Bilbo is right, that now we have the ordinance, now we have to have the underlying regulations, so we'll, and that's a select board approval item, so we'll be working on those. And that's it. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Michelle, a
Second.
second? Second, John. All those in favor? Okay,
All right, thank you.
great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to those at home watching us and on video.